The doors of the wild are wide open, and at the same time closed to civilization. Its landscapes are strewn with geographic obstacles, rivers and streams, lakes and oceans. Forests stand as guardians. Mountains rise up to intimidate and challenge anyone who approaches. And for those who have eyes to see, the wild reveals its treasures. It speaks volumes to those who dare venture through its doors, and then waits for our response.
Experience the wonder of creation in the wilderness and discover what the wild reveals about God on this day of discovery.
The call of the wild. What is it? Why are so many of us drawn to distant horizons? It's the call that in large part inspired the growth of America, the New World. Even today, because of the work and foresight of people like John Muir and Teddy Roosevelt, much of that wilderness remains. It offers wild places where one can retreat from civilization, reconnect with the creation and the Creator, and find rest, meaning, and significance. To some, the wilderness is a frightening place to be avoided. For others, it offers adventure or creates a sense of peace in response to a beautiful and pristine wonderland. The wilderness of Alaska has been called the final frontier of North America. Most of it is wild. Alaska is so large and so formidable, outsiders are dwarfed by the landscape. Its wilderness overloads the senses. There's too much to take in. There are some who can help us see, some who can help us bring into focus what we might otherwise miss.
Oh, what a hit. Oh, it's a beautiful grayling. Oh, man. I think the grayling shouts Alaska, you know what I mean? It's got those big, look at that dorsal fin. It's all pink and blue, and it's got that silvery sheen. Maybe you Southern boys would say it's the bluegill of the North, but I just love it. And it's a white, flaky meat, and 10,000 eagles can't be wrong. They love them.
Rocky McKelvin is a hunting and fishing guide based at his lodge tucked along the Halitna River southwest of Anchorage.
As you look around, you see that this is really the wild, remote part of Alaska. Alaska, believe it or not, has 14 what they would call big game animals. 14 from the fox all the way up through the bison and through the muskox, the grizzly, the polar bear, black bear. In our area, we have a lot of moose. We used to have a lot of caribou, but we got a lot of wolves, and that took care of the caribou. Birds, I mean, all birds of prey, the osprey, the eagle, just incredible amounts of, it's the end of the flyway for ducks, and you can imagine. And the trumpeter swan has a 7-foot wingspan. They mate for life, they're white, they're beautiful. So lots of birds, 457 different kinds of birds and wildlife in Alaska. I grew up in Alaska in the 50s, and we had a beautiful garden. We had a river running right by the cabin. We had moose and caribou in the hills, and that's how we lived, and that's how we survived. My dad used to say, Rocky, if the fishing's no good and the hunting's no good, the eating better be. And that's what we do. John, what's for lunch?
We're having sandwiches. We have turkey and chicken salad or ham, and we have Alaska smoked king salmon dip. Eating in the wild, I guess, to me means living off the land. Eating in the wild is catching fish and cooking it for dinner that night. It means going to the garden and getting rhubarb from the garden for pie. It means getting potatoes from the garden, and it means making salad from the garden. There's a lot of options. You have moose and caribou, and there's wild berries and blueberries and cranberries and cabbage, and it's just an endless variety, really.
And so I have recreated in remote Alaska exactly how I grew up. And so we have the moose and the caribou and the bears and fish out of the river, a beautiful garden, and we share that with others who would like that experience. Wow. Josh, how you doing, man? Unbelievable. Two big grizzlies sitting over there. You feel safe with that? Congratulations, great job. Brandon, nice.
Thank you.
One night in the tent, one morning in shot, huh?
You bet.
Wow.
Rocky takes people deep into the Alaskan wilderness to fish, to hunt, to be alone without man-made distractions.
Only by going alone in silence, without baggage, can one truly get into the heart of the wilderness. All other travel is mere dust, hotels, and chatter.
People need wild places, whether or not they think they do. They need to experience a landscape that is timeless, whose agenda moves at the pace of ice ages. Wilderness puts us in our place. It reminds us that our plans are small and somewhat absurd.
Presently, in the United States, there are 756 wilderness areas, almost 110 million acres. So how do we learn to see the wilderness for what it is? And what does the wilderness reveal about the character and nature of its creator? In the Bible, a man named Job suffers a series of terrible losses. He questions God's goodness, and God eventually answers Job with questions of his own.
Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Have you ever given orders to the morning, or shown the dawn its place? What is the way to the place where the lightning is dispersed, or the place where the east winds are scattered over the earth? Do you hunt the prey for the lioness, and satisfy the hunger of the lions when they crouch in their dens, or lie in wait in a thicket? Who provides food for the raven when its young cry out to God and wander about for lack of food? Job chapter 38.
In his pain, Job had lost sight of the wisdom and power of God. But now, confronted by the author of creation, his eyes were opened.
People can and do and willfully miss God's love in creation. They don't appreciate it for that. What they want out of creation is some self-gratification, not adoration. They want the biggest moose, and they want the biggest caribou, and they want the biggest fish. And yet I think at the same time not to stop and just ponder the wonderful, complex ways of God in creation. And that's the way I look at it. The water, the air, the food, everything that we have, that we are, that we breathe, comes from a loving hand of God. To both the believer who wants to believe and see, and to the non-believer who will never see and will never believe.
In the sanctuary of the wilderness, we're not the first to sense its wonder. In the Bible, the prophet Isaiah and King David both remind us that all created things reflect the power and wisdom of their Creator. Even trees, rivers, and mountains respond to their Maker. And the last book of the Bible, Revelation, describes a time when all creatures will worship God together.
Every creature which is in heaven, and on the earth, and under the earth, and such as are in the sea, and all that are in them, I heard saying, Blessing and honor, and glory and power be to him who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb, forever and ever. Revelation chapter 5.
One of the things that the animals understand is that God loves them and takes care of them because he simply provides for the birds, he provides for the foxes. He even says that in Scripture. The lilies are arrayed in beauty. And I've also noticed that man has forgotten that the greatest gift that God shows his love is through his creation. I don't care if you like organic foods or you shop at a regular shopping center or grocery store. When you walk down those aisles, that's not from a farmer. That's a gift from God. He gave you the earth. He gave you the soil. He puts the water, the air that we breathe, the sunshine that grows things. And we have forgotten how to worship and love our God simply because we have forgotten to look at creation and thank him, and to be able to express the joy, the celebration that we are a part of the absolute thing that he loves the most. He loved us so much that he shed his blood for us, but he also gave us his earth and this world to take care of.
Sometimes we experience God's creative power through pictures or words, but seeing the wilderness for ourselves can speak to us in unexpected ways.
I decided to take an extended vacation, a sabbatical, you might call it, and I left in February and was just about 9 months later in November I came back home. I traveled, started in Maine, went down the East Coast to Florida, across the South to California, up to Alaska, and then back down through the Rockies.
Steve Mayer is a carpenter by trade whose hobby is to photograph nature. Through the eye of his camera's lens, Steve takes us to some of his favorite places. Florida,
the Everglades, you know, that's just a huge grassy river. They actually consider the whole thing a river. You know, you get the egrets and the alligators and things like that there. Then you move on to Texas, Big Bend National Park. It's a very impressive place. It was hot, desert, and mountains, and beautiful in its own way. California coast, Big Sur, just watching the whales out in the ocean, and some of the seabirds and stuff were great there. The mountains, like the Olympic Mountains, Olympic National Park, North Cascades. Then you get up into Alaska, and you've got the mountains again, and then northern Alaska, vast, huge. You get up on a knoll and look out, and you don't see any sign of humans anywhere, and wild and vast, big. It's just impressive. I sometimes think that beauty is the surest evidence of God's goodness. You know, He put beauty out there for us. I mean, it's above and beyond what we actually need. It's superfluous. You can look at all the interesting interactions, the complexities and things like that, and you can actually explain them away scientifically. I don't quite understand how you can do that with beauty, with the beauty of creation. Why would God make the leaves turn so brilliantly in the fall when they could just turn brown and drop off? I don't know, maybe you could argue that He made us to enjoy the colors rather than the colors for us to enjoy. And there were other times when I think of them as my take off your shoes and sing the doxology moments, where you just really see that God is there, and God made this beautiful, awesome world for us to enjoy. Yeah. I would get up a lot of times before sunrise and get out to some place and catch either the sunrise itself or the early morning light on whether it's a landscape or sometimes I'd get into a place where I was looking for a particular bird or a particular animal. I had a lot of fun shooting muskox when I was up there. I just got lucky and came upon a herd of muskox right along the road, and just waited for them to wake up from their nap and photographed them. And they come so close, and it was so I don't know, it was almost easy, almost too easy. I thought I saw some deer up here. Maybe we can catch up to them without scaring them away. Okay. The key to shooting wildlife, I think, is finding wildlife that will tolerate your presence. I mean, that's a big key. Also, patience is a big one. You can't tell them how to pose, and you can't tell them to sit still. I guess there was somewhat of a search for God in the wilderness. I was looking for some very real, tangible signs of Him out there.
In the Apostle Paul's letter to the Romans, he points to creation as a visible reflection of its invisible Creator.
For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. Romans chapter 1.
So what is it about the natural world that shows us God's eternal power and divine nature? For openers, there's mathematical precision.
When I come out in the wilderness, what impacts me the most is seeing the creation and seeing how it's so divinely inspired, and seeing how each thing is made with such thought by God that everything works together in such a beautiful way. And then going back into an urban environment and seeing how there's such discord within the people and within the buildings, and just how things don't mesh together in the same way they do here. And just seeing how if we were to follow the natural design that God's given us, I think that would really change our urban environments.
For me, coming into the wilderness is just being able to look around and see the peace and the harmony that is around us, and just shows us God's beauty and His peace, and the way He just orchestrates everything so perfectly to work together for us.
Long ago, the prophet Isaiah saw the ability of the natural world to praise its Creator.
Shout for joy, O heavens! Rejoice, O earth! Burst into song, O mountains! For the Lord comforts His people, and will have compassion on His afflicted ones. Isaiah chapter 49.
It's really rejuvenating, and it helps me to just it relieves a lot of anxiety and a lot of stresses, because when especially at night, when you sleep under the stars and you see all of the stars, and just you imagine just the billions and billions of different galaxies and universes, and you think of how far away they are and how what you're seeing is 4,000 light years old, or however old it is. It's crazy to be worried about a test, or to be worried about what you're gonna do in the next year, or what school you're gonna get into, when there's that huge universe, that you're being taken care of.
One of the distinctive features of the wild is its complexity and never-ending cycles. In plants, in fish, and mammals, the balance of nature is all around us.
I don't know of anything more wonderful and complex than going to this little creek right up here that we just went to, knowing that in a few days there will be thousands of salmon there. And the river has that complexity where that fish then goes out into the estuaries and the bays of the oceans, and he gets to be about 6 to 8 inches. And then he goes into a gyre, 3,000 miles, all the way down past the Sakhalin Islands, Providenia, over to Alaska, through the Bering Straits, San Francisco, all the way back around. Huge current of water. Hundreds of thousands and millions of salmon swimming in that gyre. And 4 years go by. And that salmon in the middle of the ocean says, I want to go home. I want to go home. And how in the world does he find this place? Then they have to pass myriads of creeks and sloughs and other places. Hey, this, why didn't they spawn over there? Why do they go right there? I mean, the same spot they were, year after year, same spot. The salmon performs an incredible miracle in the life of Alaska. And that is given to him by his creator through this water right here. Right here. That's pretty amazing stuff. We are the gardeners. We are the caretakers since the first garden. And it's not with abandonment. We're not out there in a moving train across the West shooting thousands of buffalo. We are very careful on managing our great gift, this wonderful gift of the wildlife. And we put a lot of time and a lot of effort into being good stewards of what God has given us. We know that to take a female from the water is to really affect the population. So if we keep fish, a few fish that we could keep, we keep the males and that are going to die anyway, and we take care of the females, and that's the way it should be, guys. I mean, we've gone about 100 miles up the river to our remote upper river camp, and it's real gravelly, and we're looking for a little different species of fish here. We're fishing for char and grayling, beautiful fish, and it's just a comfortable kind of a fish day. Oh, whoa, but I love it because you're not working big pike and big salmon. You're just out fishing for fun. I think women really enjoy this kind of experience. And these fish are absolutely beautiful. These grayling have this iridescent, we'll call it the southern pinky chin or the brim. And they have that big pink and blue dots on the dorsal fin. What was God thinking there? Man, that's beautiful. Great eating fish, a very sensitive fish to the environment. And we really try to take good care of these fish. Just let her go, do her thing. Really what we like grayling, but we really like those big char. Oh baby, come to mama. Woo! I can't tell you how true it is when I go out and I look at a sunset or a sunrise or walk in a park. It doesn't have to be Alaska, but I can acknowledge that God created this, and He is sovereign and He is holy, and it is astounding. It is a time of joy. It's a time that you can truly worship God.
The call to a place that is so different from our own artificial environments is a call to the wilderness, a place that is both inviting and imposing, secluded and yet revealing. And to those who respond, the invitation is to see as we've never seen before, to look, and then to look again, to keep on looking until something becomes clear, until the whole and the parts come into focus. Here everything works together in wonder. The changing moods are more than inspirational. They're spiritual. But only for those who have eyes to see, for those who want to see. For them, the wild speaks. It speaks volumes about itself, about ourselves, and about the wonder of our Creator.